Right. So, hello, everybody. Thanks for being here, the audience, and of course the artists. Thank you, Lisa, Pierre. We just with your show or showcase also, and your work we did in MODINA Seminar. And so, actually, I maybe would like to start like this. That would you like to add something? We already knew quite a lot. Who you are, maybe like we have an idea. Yeah. So, would you like to keep it like this, or you would like to add something or cancel something from us?
Cancel. I don't need to add, but I can say that we made a pact in the team in the creation process that we wouldn't talk about to reveal after what's real, what's not real, what's the true story, what's the big story. And I was saying to someone a moment ago that there's obviously public information about me if I have a bio or I've spoken about myself in public. So there's information that's accessible where you can see if I was, you can verify. But for some people, we won't reveal what's true.
Yeah, not so much because it's so secret, but because what we wanted to work with the piece is more on this ability of what's real, what's not real, what's true. I mean, everything's real. So it's like the shorthand for human name, not human, or something that is really what we think it is or not. So it's better to express in this piece, like the space where you probably don't know, and see what's your experience of not being able to tell what's the nature of what you're seeing right here. Creates, well, that's also why it's not so much that it's so
precious.
secretive, yeah.
But it's talked a bit like your roles in the work, or maybe your collaboration also. But I know from what I have read is that you have been working together for a while and created a lot of pieces, and so it's not. I think you didn't start from the zero. You already have like an experience together and lots of ideas together. Like, as we don't know how you work and what are your roles. So I also. I saw an interview with you, like there was somebody asked like Pierre, but what were you not on stage? So how is the dynamics of your work? Like usually, what are the roles? Or you can also say about the process, how do you work with what are the dynamics?
It's quite a lot. I guess, I mean, of course, when we're making a piece, there's a lot of processes that are organic, and it's difficult to actually, it's not that someone has a defined role. We co-sign the work, but I would say a place to start would be to say that there's this someone speaking from the stage, like really as a performer, as someone who's been a performer all life, and I build the work more from outside, like watching. So there's a bit of that dialogue of inside outside, I would say. I guess, yeah, maybe this is working with the movement material or some elements when I'm like maybe taking care of like the staging and the conceptual like framework of the work. But obviously that's like a very hard element that doesn't exist because there's a lot of porosity with all those inside outside like questions, ideas. So I could say that.
But in terms of technology, like or is it like how do the ideas start to come to you? Like is it like there's a I don't know, some choreographic idea or a question you have about the body or embodiment as a performer? For example, is there some kind of new technology or you were working with the AI, like there's something specific question that you're really like, I want to know how the system works, how the pattern works, and you want to try it out. How does the idea start to develop from there?
a lot of the projects that we made often come from the project that was before, like questions that we were left with, and a lot of the pieces, almost all the pieces we've made are generative, meaning they're generated in real time using their protocols between performers or using algorithms on the stage that move the piece forward. So there's coming into this piece specifically, we had been working with a researcher who was part of Medina last year, John Sullivan, who was working in human computer interaction. It was a way to kind of support what the performers are doing in real time in terms of collective decision, which then let us, like every time, it leads us to some serious questions about the role of technology, or it kind of leads us to led us to be able to start working with motion capture. It really started to work with, then opens up an entire can of worms, so to speak. Somatic questions and physical practice, memory, learning. Like, I mean, it was just I guess I sort of, maybe I revealed my age. I don't know if I revealed my age, started showing up, if you believe it, but I've been at this for quite a long time, and I think that in this project with the movement generator and this motion capture work that you were doing, I think I've never confronted so many questions about my practice until, as I did in this particular project. Not just down to any other work that we did before, because it was always quite intensive, but there's just something else that started to open up a lot of questions to really about the body, not about technology, but.
There was also a thread like in that piece and in that research that started like maybe in 2019 or 2020. I just defended my PhD. It was in AI, but in natural language processing, and it felt clear to me that there was something coming, and there were already deepfakes, but it felt like when you were working on the field that there was something coming that would really transform our relationship to reality and our capacity to, I mean, everybody was aware that you could like doctor a photo using Photoshop, but at the time I was thinking like, okay, like this is going to become everywhere. Like you're not going to be able to trust like a video or even the sound of the voice of like someone in your family. And actually now there's a lot of stands where people call mimicking, cloning the voice of someone you know to ask money for money, and it's happening. So the question was also, okay, what is it going to mean to live in a world where you can't tell what is true and what's not true? And that was before they would start to think about this some years ago, and then ChatGPT happened end of 2022, and then it was AI symbol was everywhere, which also changed a bit the way we were thinking about the piece, because we didn't want to make it thematically about AI and have this gimmicky like, oh, we can do this cool thing or not. And then so it was maturing, and also how can we treat that question of what's true, not true. And then there was this opportunity, and we heard about that Paul of Modina, and it felt like, yeah, the perfect project to reflect, like have a time to research and explore and try to think about what it would mean to work with this question: what's real, what's not real, what's true, what's not true, in a theater setup. And there was actually, I mean, also a torturous journey, because now it looks like it's an autobiographical stand-up self one woman show, but it was not at all the way it was initially thought of. We were wanting to work with artifacts of movements that would be real and unreal, and also text that would be true, not true, and also music. So we had this idea that we would work with those medium and try to create a hybrid form of like this environment that we will or already are living in, which is like the world now. You see photos, you hear sounds, and you don't quite know if they've been made by humans or not. And but we were working with all those things, and they were floating, and then we realized as we were in Bucharest that the little problem with that angle is that the theater is a machine to digest that question, because it doesn't matter. You're an actor or an actress on stage, and it's true, not true. Like you're acting. I mean, it's basically the machine that resolves the question. So that's why we ended up like trying and think about everything, and we're generating Chopin, like it sounds really incredible Chopin, and the technology is really great, and the text generation is sometimes like Liz would cry. It was like a text that's generated by a machine, like so it was convincing, but on the other end, you're outside and you're like, okay, this is a fiction or whatever. I mean, yes, but also in the form, how do you make that? And so we ended up getting to this place where we built a sort of fake autobiography to create also a relationship with the audience that then can engage with that question. Like, is that true or not? Because I mean, why would you care if someone, a performer on stage is saying the truth or not? Well, I guess if they're saying that it's their life, you're going to start to maybe wonder and then wonder what you hear and wonder. I mean, that's a question for you guys, but that was our hope. And I guess what with the feedback that we've been receiving is that it incorporates like that question, what is it that tending to? So
I think it's a very interesting for me. It was also like, yeah, if I was reading or when I was reading your text a bit and I trying to understand what you're working on. And then I was thinking, and also today actually, I was thinking that the same thing in theater for me, everything is unreal, like or it's fake. If I come in there, I don't believe anything. If a person is even like saying something or pretends to be, or the name is the same, everything is the same, and you're telling your story, but I don't believe it because I'm in the theater. So, everything is fiction, and I think it's like an interesting point also in like more in the contemporary theater now. Like, or what's the theater actually become if we are living in this fake world a lot, like seeing like all the Instagram posts and everything, and you come to the theater space, what are we looking? Are we like looking the truth now that we want to see something that is, but actually it is not meant to be the place for that, you know, like, and that's like, that is the role like changing. And maybe now when I'm moving towards that direction, then I'm also thinking about your role actually. Like, what is the role that you're stepping into? You have said that there is the question of like, where does the, for you or for you too, that where does the body and that the machine begins? And now there is, you have kind of created that creature, you know, or kind of like it's a role, right, that you're doing. Or where is the line when you come on stage and you're like performing there, like who is this character? Or is it living inside you now when you go up and you feel like a machine in everyday life, or you know, what does it do?
No, it's a very beautiful question. But it makes me think of how whatever I'm doing on stage needs to be true. It needs to be the truth. It needs to be real for what is happening in that moment. Like, it needs to be lit. My name is really Liz, I think, by the way. So I really do need to find where Liz is and what does the things I'm saying, or the movements that I'm doing, or whatever I'm doing, like that, what you're going to see and what you're going to feel, what you're connect to is Liz. It's not going to be a Lady Macbeth, or not that I've ever done Shakespeare, but whatever that is, like I need to find myself inside whatever I'm doing. That's one thing that makes me think of, is that the only way I can get on stage to do what I'm being asked to do, either by us, myself, or from another choreographer when I was working with other artists, was to be able to find to find my truth in it and my realness in it. And then that's one thing that makes me think your question makes me. And then
and all with that, because you said like everything in theater is not true, but in that respect, I also would say that everything is true also, and in that sense, like, because everything is flesh and bones and blood, and it's very real, but so it's like, you know, like,
Yeah, in
because
theater,
everything
actually they're
because
searching for truth.
Exactly.
Yeah, what they say, that there has to be this image.
And there's a truth also in just the reality of the experience of the co-presence, and that's very specific to theater or performative work.
I'm a little bit tired maybe. No, I was thinking about how that yes, to be who I am. Oh, I can find it back.
Yeah, but if it maybe if I help you, my question was also like when you go out of the stage now, does it somehow come with you?
That was exactly, thank you, I got it back, you did it. Feel good, thank you. Is that what it makes me think, it makes me think, is that in fact, we're always performing. Like right now, I mean, I myself, and I'm telling you the truth, like I'm being me and I'm trying to transmit and connect to you as honestly and as candidly, and I'm trying to, I could give you, like, if I could take out my guts and put them on the table here, I would for you, like, I really,
We
you
don't know that.
Yeah, touche. However, in order to exist and to move through the world, there is a performative space, you know, that how, so it's also something that's really quite helpful or can kind of give me a little bit of reflection perhaps on the performative me that's on the metro, or that like calls my mom, or like what, you know, all these versions of ourselves, or even the memories that are, I can be 100% sure happened, but they didn't, you know, like this is also part of the truth is the memories are not accurate. So it's also this kind of thing in my personal life, yes, to say, to come off stage and just to really be in a space of like, okay, whoa, and of course, yes, now we have social media, you know, it's so much. It's a good kind of reminder to be like, okay, where do I situate myself, and where can I actually reside? That feels true. That feels authentic. That feels so. It's been quite an interesting, also life experiment.
As we go now already like a comment came, and it's very good. I would like to that also others, if you have like a question, you can really like raise your hand, you know, let us know that it's not gonna come in the end, that now you can talk, it's gonna be now. If you feel related to some topic with really like a comment or says already somebody. No.
I can.
Yeah,
I-
you already have.
Yeah. I was thinking about, you know, this is like a layering. At the one hand, you're right that if I look on stage, you are flesh and bones, you are Liz, and you are yourself. So you are like a truth on stage. You are that's like a truth. The story is made up in some parts, I guess. The story is made up, but at the same time, you have a visualization of your heart rate, I assume. I don't know, is it like animation or is that true, like a sense of visualization? I don't know. I assume that it's true, like the truth, but
Yeah, you can say that.
It's true.
yeah, but yeah, that's what I thought.
Bravo.
Why effort if it's not true? And then at the same time, you give something out from yourself, which is unconscious, and you visualize it on the wall. So I think that adds another layer of like a truth, because your body is true, but what you are talking is fake. You know, that's it's interesting. You know, not even contradiction, but like
Tension.
yeah, between. Like, do you have like a comment on that? Like, what do you mean by giving you away your heart rate away, which is super personal? Like, what is your thought behind it? If I may.
On one end, it's a sort of artifact that very simply but very impactfully somewhat like synthesize the relationship between something very organic, human heart beating, and a numerical artifact, like a digital artifact. It's kind of also synthesis of what we're dealing with here, which is like humans and machines, and what's the interface and what's the conversation. And so, yeah, as you said, like it's very real and it's very intimate. And it's also numbers on screen. Actually, some people don't realize that this is live heart rate. It's also sometimes people are confused because it seems very high, and it is, and it's also something quite beautiful about performance is that when we do it in rehearsal, this is 40 BPMs lower. So it's just like the presence and the gaze and this
Your energy.
the chemistry of the
It's doing that.
audience and the performer is elevating, it's creating tension or importance or something that really makes the body show up in a different way. And so it's all that and it's also maybe having this sort of like dynamic abstraction where if you don't realize it's a heart rate, it's also numbers that are moving in some sort of way that seems naturally random, I guess. But that's also naturally, some people try to like maybe at the beginning when it's below the hundreds, that it's maybe dates or like years or like associated to memories or I don't know,
But we can see as well, we can see the tension because like 150 heart rate is like you are running. Like this is like it's really high.
And tonight she went over 172, she was at 174, like.
It's dangerous. Yeah.
It's right here.
The phone in 79, it's dangerous.
It's a dangerous business.
I don't know, it's joking.
Matter of life and death.
But I always, it reminds me of, we worked a lot since the early pieces of this, of working a lot. Somatic practices, working with the nervous system. And letting the nervous system be something that is compositionally, is functioning as a compositional tool. And I was always really, as a performer and then starting to make work, I was really interested in this idea of nervous system being something that's a compositional tool. And I always think it's really remarkable that you can be walking around a city and on the sidewalk and crossing the street, and your life is somewhat in danger. Like you could something could happen to you right out in the world. But no one walks around like, oh my gosh, I'm scared. But you get on stage and we all agree that I'm pretty safe. Like if something's gonna happen to me, I have a lot of witnesses. You know, like, it's not a dangerous place, but I'm like, it's life or death.
Yeah.
You know, and I find this very, as Pierre was saying, really fascinating and touching and beautiful that this place to share is really special. It's really special. It's really important.
Maybe a background in neurology informs this BPM.
Yeah, but it's public knowledge that I did study nerves.
Yeah.
That is, but you wanted to say something.
Yeah, it was really real, and I didn't even question what's real or not.
Cool.
It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
I was more compelled with the thing that what is more demanding, like you said, like the choreography of Madonna, or actually being in a role, actually having all those emotions. So I was watching the heart rate in this matter, like how many deep emotions were getting into the surface on were you with those emotions. So whether the heart rate actually hopped because of that, and I was wondering which part of it is harder. Memorizing something, doing something physically, like physical movements, or actually trying like an actor, getting into the role of actually feeling those things, and then having even like those fingers bubbling when I saw like the emotion in those fingers.
Yeah, I thank you for your question. I don't like the easy answer is, or the quick answer is I don't know. I think I can't think of it as something as being harder because what you describe of the emotion of the role of the emotion of the body, like that's like the best part of my job. You know, like that is like that is so cool. You know, like that is like so much fun. Even if I'm feeling something quite intense and sad, or like that is like wow, like that you were even there, that you came. You know, like we did it. That like it's really beautiful that can exist. And so that part, all of that part is really fun. And I think I'm not a trained I'm not an actress. period. I am a dancer, and so yeah, it's like I think it's an interesting question too, because or also in real life outside of the stage, everything is everything gets understood through my body, and I think that so I get in my little mini soapbox for a minute and just say that that's the truth for all of us, is that our bodies are the ones that are feeling, that are processing emotion. It reaches our brain after, and because I can say that studied some neuroscience, so I do know what I'm talking about. The brain comes after, right? So it's we're all feeling like through these things that we have, that we're so lucky to have, that they're magical. We understand them like this much. So it's like being able to feel that and then express it and share it with whoever happens to be there. So thank you all for coming. You know, it's so I don't know, I can't say like what's harder or not. I feel very, I don't mean to sound really cheesy, but I feel really lucky, like that I can do all those things and share them and work on them, like in a context, like a laboratory context, like Modina is facilitating, is huge. Also, like it's not neutral. It's not like I can just sit in my apartment and do that. Like we need resources, but we also need space. We need so it's a lot of things that come together to make that happen, that magic. But again, like it's available to us all, that we all are feeling each other, and there's information traveling around us right now about our emotions. And I think that's maybe answering your question.
I wanted to ask about like the movement sequences and also the text parts. If you were working with AI, like how did you decide what to like what do you feed into the machine? Yeah, based on what? How did you pick yourself? Yeah, that's me. That the machine tries to learn.
For the maybe I can speak about the text. Maybe I please say about the movement is that it is true that we gave through motion capture we recorded our repertoire that of our work in the past 10 years in the motion capture studio. Motion capture where you can it's like you can record movement. It's like a lot of video games use it, cinema. So we recorded our repertoire, 10 years of choreography, plus many hours of me improvising. So the way I move, which is specific to me, like you move like no one else, you move like we all have our own. So unique is our face. So then working with a researcher, Leo Chenin, who's also working in Modina last year with another project. So Leo and Pierre worked to then create this movement generator. That then it just spits out movement, just generates movement phrases. And so that is true, that there's some we kind of how do you say, we like edited, so you have 8 minutes of this movement generation, because you can keep going. It's like ChatGPT, you can just keep spitting out movement and movement. So at some point you have to kind of like stop it and go, okay, we have a show in this many months, so okay. So and then you also sometimes it's like it's just really buggy for a really long time, or doesn't do much, or like we also had a lot of issues as technology is not always so straightforward. Where it's like flying in the air and it's like levitating and spinning around, and you're like, I really have to stand on the floor. So these kinds of things. So we kind of edited these 8 minutes that were not curated in the sense of like, oh, I want really something so special. It was just like, okay, where can we see, where's something interesting happening that like my body's gonna have a challenge to do it.
But what do you mean about this interesting? Well, who says what is interesting?
Great question. Because when it's bugging for a really long time, at some point, like I'm like, we could make a show that's maybe like, maybe we could make a show that's 12 hours long, but I don't have that kind of time to, like, I'm already, as I said, like it took 100 hours to learn the 8 minutes. So at some point you just have to like, okay, it was not bugging, but it was kind of like in this place for maybe over a course of a minute. It was like in this kind of place for really like 20 seconds. and then it would move again, and then it would like, so kind of somehow removing a little bit of
So it
this.
took that out.
Yes, not all of it, not all of it. But just at some point, it was like, I needed to see limbs in motion. Like, it was just like, oh, the arm is moving, okay, great. Like, it was not so much like, I really like that thing. Like, it was just, kind of editing to kind of find something that, and a lot of it is not physically possible for me to even do.
Yeah, but that's the interesting part, I think, like, how do you decide, or what's the, like, that the machine cannot do it, for example, and that's why you don't feed in that information. So that's the interesting, I think, like, and then what is the aesthetics that comes out, or I'm sure that they still kind of think that, that's it's cool or not, like, there's some kind of aesthetic of thinking behind it, or what's the thing or quality that we are, it could be also that we really want to get the body out.
There were, and I will say, I will add one more character, one more feature, is that there were things, and still to this day, it still happens, there were things I couldn't see. Meaning, like, I'm watching this and I can't even see, like, we had like other dancers coming in to work because I had needed other colleagues to come in, like, look, I had a Laban notator come in, look, because I was really like, it was so hard to learn. I was like, I've been learning my whole life, usually not that slow, and I was really like, so now I realized that it was, I just couldn't see it. Because there was just things that I couldn't, like, my brain couldn't see.
You mean the avatar? So,
Yeah,
like
the movement it was doing, I
Yeah.
couldn't see it. And it's, now I realize even more, it's funny because we did the show a month ago. And even in just 1 month, before every show already, I have to watch the 8 minutes before I perform, because it's not something that's organically ever gonna be in my body. I have to re-find it every time. So, and after doing it now for a month, was really interesting because I saw things I'd never seen before. Suddenly I was like, oh, I never noticed it, and it's happened all the time. So at some point there's just so much information. And because it's a 3D, you can look at it from, you can zoom, you can, it's really luxurious. But there's just so much information that your brain and how you parse out movement, especially if you're looking at movement your whole life, like it kind of explodes. And I was like, there would be moments I was like, I'm either gonna have to spend another 2 weeks learning 10 seconds because I want to try, and it's interesting, it was cool. It was even, there was cool stuff where I was like, oh, that is so cool, but I was just like, oh my god, my brain is gonna explode.
It reminds me a bit like, when you start to like prepare like a text and you want to use AI, and then you feed something in and you think, oh, it's super, it's already there, like I'm quicker, and then you start to like correct some things and there are new ideas coming in, and then it's getting like worse and worse, and the time is going and you thought that you're gonna win time, but actually really, it's like more complicated.
The land is further and further away. Yeah. AI. You're gonna say that.
Yeah.
So I have a question. I have very often this experience with AI that it lies to me. It's absolutely nonsense answers that I know are not true. So the answer that AI gave you, your dance, your movements, was it true for you? Did you believe AI?
In what sense, like, meaning, did I believe that it was me, that they were, no, of course, like, I know that it's an avatar that is.
No, but did you believe that the AI kind of like mirrored or made a summary of your, like, a very personal pattern of movements?
I can say that I recognize in what it was generated, there would be movements, like brief movements from my movement, like I would see and that actually was something that allowed us something that we used in the piece as a way to have these sort of on-ramps for existing movement that we've had in our work. So
because there's a generated movement in the prologue and the epilogue, but also the generated movement is kind of like woven into also all the movement throughout the piece and things that have been choreographed and made by us, but it's also kind of a glue in a way.
So did you believe it? Was this true for you? Or it was an AI thing?
Maybe the difference is, I'm trying to understand that if I'm using like this text-based like ChatGPT, so there's like the AI brain has some kind of, you know, it gets the information or the, like the huge pank, you know, like where you get the stuff and then you get the words in a row. But in your case, it's a move, you know, I don't know what engine did you use. So you had only your own material in there. So there was no kind of lie possible, I guess.
Yeah, there's no outside.
Of course, there is always possible. I mean, AI is trained to give you an answer that pleases you.
Yeah,
To do it quickly, but not
Yeah,
necessarily to tell you.
Very good
yeah,
question.
kind
It's not very pleasing when I thought.
of-
That's cheated.
This is where you started.
But
You
that's-
started with a question about truth.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, that's,
Yeah,
I think-
please.
there's different layers and different angles. It's true that with the, I guess like when you're talking to a large language model and it's telling you that so-and-so was born somewhere and it's true, then it could mislead you and you believe that it's saying something true and not true. When we generate movement based on our repertoire and we by definition know if it's something we made or not. So by definition, we can't be lied to because we have the ground truth reference, you know. So and with that, and also when you say, I think that's an interesting question, and I think that's for us also motivation to work with AI in a way that's maybe suitable for this kind of experimental work and context and community. Because you said like AI is trained to blah blah blah. But again, that's how AI is trained by certain majors to sell you service, to recommend you like music, or whatever. But and so to sell you products or to propose to you the next song that you're gonna like or more of the same to make it short. But that's not like that's not integral to AI algorithms. It's like how they're trained and how they're used, you know, like you can, and in that context, it's more, first we use our own data, we bundle with different architectures and open source models, like we're not using a system that's like calibrated or tuned to deliver some type of experience. We're more using it as a way to explore and to see what where we could go that we haven't gone. And so it's more like a compositional partner, or it's like the way, like back when we didn't talk about AI, like everybody knows about Forsyth or Cunningham or blah, blah, but it was like, for instance, like Jan Beeman, like an American choreographer in the 60s who was already like composing dances with like machines just to also like reroute and deconstruct the ballet composition. And so I think for us, it's the same idea. And I think that's also how AI can be liberating as opposed to kind of something that narrows down the experience of reality. Because of course, like if it's created in a way where it's going to give you more of what you already, and on top of that, fool you into believing that what it's hallucinating is true, and that's not very exciting. But there's also a way to use it in an exploratory way, and I think that's what like citizens, artists, like people, we need to do. We need to also be like, well, there's another side to those technologies, which is more emancipating or creative or free. And in that sense, I think it's also touching in that question of the piece, and I think that's why I think that's to me the bright side of AI. Because there's all kinds of not super bright sides, to not to say very terrible sides of it, but it does question in a sort of novel way and more and larger way the nature of reality. The same way, like you could go in a cave and like as a Zen, like use Zazen, like or a Zen meditator, like and like also deconstruct like reality or your experiences, see that like everything is like pre-construct in your brain, and all the things that you take for granted are actually very much construct. So you don't see like the way like a hummingbird sees the world, like our assumptions, our memories, their stories, like all those things are constructs, like they're, and so I felt like that's the provocative and interesting way that AI, at least to me today as an artist, like, feels provoking and interesting because it asks me the question every day, like, what is real? What is this construct? What is this experience of reality? In that sense, I feel like it can look back to ancient spiritualities and things that it can relate to in a human way, and not just be like, okay, consuming some more like curated product, basically, and something that's harvesting some of my mental revenue. But sorry.
No, Steve, I feel like to come after what you just said, it's really beautiful. But I was just saying that it made me think, your question makes me think of like, also the first question is like, where you make a dance, you make a work of art, like where does it come from? Or did like, it's just from my belly, or like where does movement come from? As a part of it, it's my job, like ask and make it. As if I was a chef, like I'm gonna ask where my ingredients come from, how do I compose with those things? And so where does movement come from? For every part of it, it's different. Like I either improvise or I come up with something I think is cool or looks good, or my dancers move and I film them, or movement comes from these places. And it was just really interesting in this project to be like, oh, what would happen if we put this? I mean, it's AI, it's like putting it through an algorithm. Like we put my own movement through an algorithm. What's going to tell me about myself? Like what is that going to evoke for me?
That's what I remember she said, like, oh, it looks like my grandfather.
Yeah,
next
some
door.
my grandfather
Is there some sort of an archive of her
super weird.
body and history? It's almost like genetics.
Or like I saw my first modern dance teacher do something, and I was like, oh, like it's really it's but also really beautiful because then I'm again like in touch with something more deep, and I don't like thank AI for that, but I'm like, oh, this is what we're making. Like what do we want to see and understand? Where can this choreography come from? Something. Thank you for your question.
I have like just wondering, did you at any point try to ask ChatGPT who you are, to give it your autobiography and like compare it like what was on stage? Because I asked it who am I, and I died in 97. I was a ballerina.
You died in 1997?
Yeah. AI told me.
No.
Yeah, have my energy here right now. So it's kind of like interesting.
I'm glad you're
because-
here. Still.
I understand like magic with girls. But somehow like this piece was interesting because if you ask ChatGPT also or AI, whatever model, who you are, it won't tell you the full truth. It will just try to fill in the seams.
Yeah.
So this was kind of like the representation of the current world for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like kind of okay with not being certain if the information you're given is correct or not. And it felt scary that I feel comfortable in this context.
If that brings to the question of the text information.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think I mean we didn't do that because ChatGPT is always we do different LLMs that were fed and fine-tuned with some notes and some biographical data, and then we're trying to iterate and generate different things. It was very much a palimpsest, like some things were written by Liz or by me, and then some parts would be generated and then rewritten by us. So it's sort of a layering of true and untrue memories or experiences. And what we're trying to actually use or detect or connect to was not so much, I mean, we know the capacity of AI models to invent, like, this, hallucinate reality or real stuff, which it can do. But when you're working on stage and with a performer, a lot of that, I mean, it can be convincing on paper, but then when there's an actual performer that's embodying this as their life, there's a lot of it that's generated that doesn't even cut like 10% of it, like, okay, this is totally not usable. So it's also like trying to see more like what generated material could really sound and feel right and almost true, like in that sense. And so yeah, sometimes Liz would be very moved by something that was invented, but that somehow captured something about what she feels or what she's experienced in other ways. And then we would keep that, and other stuff that on paper would look like super believable and interesting, just didn't resonate physically. So, I mean, maybe that's not answering your question, but yeah, it was, it was not so much how can the AI invent something, but how can this be material that we can weave into autobiographical material and have the difference or the distinction be impossible to tell, like, and so how it's becoming one and the same thing. But
I didn't have a question, was just wondering, but right out of this talk was like, if I understood correctly, like you were still the ones who were making choices.
Yes.
Yeah.
What to keep or not. I would be highly curious in seeing a piece of the material that you sacked.
It's in the
Cut.
trash.
Yeah, in the trash, like that you didn't relate to, and like what you didn't think was good and so on. Just mildly interested because you're really curious,
You
like.
need like, I don't know, at least 6 months in your life to sit and watch it.
But it's also really interesting because underneath that question, there's something that I feel was very specific to that piece. As they said, a lot of what we've made the past 10, 12 years is protocols that are generative. There's always rules, a lot of variability from one piece to another. It's really, I mean, there's one piece that's called photo channel that this talks about and that exists, where the choreography is generated an hour and a half before each performance of the four. It's a quartet. We're actually going to redo music version of that in a couple months. So yeah, it changes, like it's an entirely, so you need to be learning. It's everything is changing all the time, and it's traveling in space in different ways, and pretty much everything that we've made is really having this kind of high level of variability from one show to another all the time. And for that piece, because there was so much generated material, like music, movement, text, something it's like piling up and exploding in their own space, and how can and we realized that we needed to really write that piece. So it's very much a written piece. I mean, it changes from one night to the other because the audience, because of the state and because of the temperature and the weather and all those things are of course changing like every performance. But it's a written piece made of a lot of materials, some of which are generated, but it felt like impossible to add a layer of generativity on top of that generated material because it started to be too noisy, and at some point it just becomes you don't even like feel like you can capture any sort of form anymore. So I guess you could have that piece, but also it would likely be kind of shapeless, like because there's a lot that, I mean, to me, my experience of generative AI, unless you really contribute a lot to the data or the prompts or the way you shape it, it also, and that's what I said before, that like it can also fool you in kind of stereotypical way, and it starts to tell a story that's like, okay, that's just the stereotype, whatever. Yeah. Even though the models are getting better and better.
But did I understand correctly that you didn't use AI anymore, like for the shaping part? That, for example, that you knew that you're gonna have that piece, that's like, yeah, we have this idea, and now please tell us what should be the parts. Like we have this material, like how should we compose it, build it up? And for this section,
The artists, we were driving the car, the artists were behind the wheel.
In a way that
We were
we
not
usually
set.
don't, like it's
Yes, that's interesting.
it's like additional choices in ways that tend to. There's also all that question that you touched, like how do I do that because it's cool, I like the way it looks, and we tend to be like, oh, what's interesting? It's actually not to do that, because if you do that, you don't experiment, you don't go where you haven't been yet. So you need to actually do the opposite of that if you want to explore new spaces. But that is
The piece that you were just speaking with about Fortune Shannon, you said that Pierre said that the phrase gets generated before the show each time. And I always forget the number, but how many shows are possible? How many billions of shows?
Like 30 billion.
There are 30 billion, sorry. So the graphic phrase that gets generated for each show, there's 30 billion possibilities. That's the way we tend to work, is this kind of way. So there's 30 billion possibilities, so we won't even if you were to repeat one, we wouldn't even know. Because if you asked me to do the choreography from that show, I wouldn't even be able to do it, even though I tweeted it for some time and we still redo it, and the movement is not available to me. So it's just interesting in terms of these choices of curation, that yes, very much we of course we create the shape, but the actual curation of the movements, we hand over that wheel. But it's true that in this piece because also the movement generator is doing, and also the text generation is doing so much already that it's
you don't want to need any more like this generating.
I don't sure but it would be coherent.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, mostly so because it's not really the point here to have like the like the piece that's not really,
Yeah, but what about still the authorship in this piece? Is it totally you made it, or you would still give the credits to the AI also?
No. Sorry, no, but I understand that question because I thought in different contexts that could be a real question. There are certainly pieces where the question is really, it's really, and it's a very legitimate question on certain works. And some very interesting works. It's not but that piece I don't think it qualifies in like a question.
And it's not a creation.
Yeah. The what?
It's not a creation, but AI has.
Because I mean, it's treated material, but positionally, but as you said, like any sort of, I mean, you make a piece of music, is a piece of artifact or any technology, the technology, the piece not really, like coherent technology, it's been a tool that could have been used to compose that piece. But then we can, again, like there are pieces that are really like question authorship, but I think this one is not one where the question is really relevant. Because the composition, it's like really been tools to make material and explore events and compose that material. In that sense, that's what I said. It's traditionally written piece, but made from like really not traditional material.
So, are there any other questions coming from this side? No. In terms of time, to be, it's good. It's good, but still 5 minutes or.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We have more even, but the necessary time is felt.
So actually, I have one kind of my very personal question. But my feeling would be ask is that if I was thinking, if I actually saw first of the image of the work, and it's AI, and I saw the ballet aesthetics, and also that the movement comes like from ballet. And then I was, as I read your text, I still have the feeling a bit that you are like critical about using AI and what's the AI, and we have to take kind of care of it, like where it's gonna go. That it will expand somehow, like that we are not able to control where does it take us or something. And I have sometimes the feeling also that we are talking about AI as something, as a machine that has a soul or like a will or wants to do something, but actually it's just like it doesn't have like its own intentions, like it's how we use it.
So did you say we talk about it like it does?
No, I was like, I had this feeling that it's more about like also being critical about AI or like what's the engine. And then I was thinking actually that it's like this artificial kind of and fake word that comes out of that, or with the help of AI also. So then I was actually thinking that ballet itself, what was the is for me it's quite like artificial, not so like for a human body actually meant to be. It's something to be really like up there, very fiction. It's very unreal thing to train yourself and to become someone ballerina. And so I think here in this work it was like interesting, like this. I think it's like another layer. It was this kind of physical, this kind of wanting to be something bigger, you know, like something more than human, expanding. And now is the AI. It's also the text and thinking layer, language, and now they meet. By the way, you know, and we still have, and now we can think like what has this kind of ballet history and the aesthetics, how it has affected us. It hasn't been like you know, like a nice thing, or how we have used it, or how we have applied it to our bodies, and what has happened, or what is the criteria of beauty and everything, you know, like these things. And it maybe it's like more a comment, but I was also thinking, I'm not a ballet dancer, but when I was looking at your show and thinking you as a dancer also, like, is there something, how would you compare this, or now when you have been working with AI, what it demands from you, and what has like ballet training, or you were like, but you were so little, you know, you didn't think about it, you know, like you're very
You know, I think it relates back to your first question around like, being real, or like, you know, where I am in that and how I situate myself as this kind of character that gets, but it's like ballet is very much that, and I would have the same sort of answer to what would be the use of that, of being able, for me to be able to, you know, put on another body, or put on some movement that then I can really then where I find myself. And I think probably, again, memories are maybe not always true, but I think I'm pretty confident that when I left the classical ballet was because I realized exactly that I was like, oh well, at some point, like, I'm really gonna have to ride that train of artificialness. I think, I realized that at some point in my early 20s, that there is something where I'm not going to be able to really express myself or find myself or do whatever. The answer to your first question, that makes sense. But I think what's interesting about ballet even being present in any way in the piece you just saw is simply from the fact that when I was improvising, and when I was improvising with the motion capture studio, I was not doing like a ballet bar or I was like, but my body is trained for that's like, it's there. As I said, like you most of us walk, when we just walk, we were walkers the way our parents walk, you know, like most of it, there's not 100%, but there's those artifacts of the movement of what we've done with our lives, and or more, even our morphology, our bodies are shaped very much by how we use them. And so there is this thing that is part of me and how I organize my body, how I understand it, that then shows up in the generator, where suddenly I'm like doing these like arms that I think I would not have chosen that, but it's producing this. You see that because that's who I am, and I can't also delete that from who I can, you know, and it's interesting. Sorry if I get personal for just one more second, is that I think when I first was working in contemporary dance after I left my neuroscience studies. I didn't know anyone in the community. I didn't go to school for dance, and I tried to pretend. Sorry, it's very personal, but I tried to pretend for the first like 5 years or so that I had never done ballet. Like I was, because it was like not cool. So I was like trying to pretend like I never had done like I was like not point my feet. Like I would just like try. I was like, oh please, like. And I remember dancing for Anne Livia, like this really like punk choreographer, and someone saying when I said something I had studied Boston Ballet, they said, "Oh, you did that." I was like, oh, I was like, yeah, like I felt like I have arrived, you know, like I hit it, you know, like I got rid of it, and now I'm in the contemporary art world, you know, and so anyway, just to say, I had that little snippet of my personal life where we try to, yeah, kind of hide things, or like that's part of who I am. So, I mean, maybe.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for your question.
But I also wanted to ask you about the language that do you think or thinking process, will it happen now with AI, kind of the same kind of thing, that we can in future kind of recognize the bad